Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into the 10th Street Journal. My name is Alan, also known as Dragosi, and welcome to day 2 of Amonkhet Remastered Previews. If you watched yesterday's video, we talked about the green and the white cards coming in with Amonkhet Remastered. We had some great additions outside of the set, including Collected Company, Wrath of God, Hornet Queen, and Rest in Peace. Today, we have 2 new sets of previews, comicbook.com and Dengeki Online. Both here have previews for us today. The comicbook.com has blue, and Dengeki Online has black. So we're going to actually real quick take a quick look and peep at the... Okay, so they don't have all of the new stuff up on the gallery yet. They have the blue, or the white and the green cards up on the gallery. So you can check those out if you so choose. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at the first one here, comicbook.com. And this is a whole article. There was an interview done here, it looks like, with... let's see. Oh, with Mark Turian. Looks like probably, I guess, one of the set designers with Amonkhet Remastered here. Yeah, lead designer. And we have a couple of interesting things here to look at. So first off, the 2 cards that were coming in here that are not a part of Amonkhet. First off is going to be Jace, Unraveler of Secrets, which is from, I believe, the Gatecrash era, Battle for Zen era, I believe. We'll double check that here. But then also Pact of Negation, which is huge. And I thought yesterday, when we were looking at the different invocations and whatnot, that Pact of Negation or any of those crazy counterspells were not going to make it into the set just because they were very powerful. But Pact of Negation coming in as a free counterspell from Future Sight, this is insane, incredible. So first off, here's the new Jace art. So you can take a look at that, pretty nice. And do they have the Pact of Negation art? I guess this is the Pact of Negation art here, I assume. So we'll just, really quick, for those who don't know what they are, we'll just take a look at each of these cards here. So Jace, Unraveler, Secrets. Oh, so sorry, from Shadows block. There we go. Jace, Unraveler, Secrets. So 3 and 2 blue for Planeswalker, 5 loyalty starting. +1 scry 1 draw a card. Pretty nice. -2, bounce a creature to its owner's hand. And then -8, you get an emblem. Whenever an opponent casts his or her first spell of each turn, counter that spell. Just pretty powerful, arguably. So this is coming in Amonkhet Remastered, and Pact of Negation being the other one. For those of you who don't know what this is, okay, even Pact of Negation. So 0 mana, counter target spell, and then at the beginning of your next upkeep, pay 3 blue. If you don't, you lose the game. So it is it's usually, these are usually cards, this is usually a card that is found in like combo decks to protect your combo without having to invest anything into it, but usually you're trying to go off and win in the same turn. And so Pact of Negation being able to, you know, protect your combo while not investing into it allows you to continue to combo off, and you never have to ever pay that upkeep cost of it, because you're going to end the game right then and there. So what this means for us here depends on, I expect that this is probably going to be in some kind of combo deck where you're going to need to be playing, you're playing maybe like New Perspectives combo, or you're playing the cycling deck, right? If there's any other kind of crazy combo, 1-2 punch combo decks that are looking to try to win the game on the spot, this is going to be in there for sure. But these 2 crazy combinations of cards are going to be added in. And in addition, they don't have any galleries, unfortunately, for the cards, but they do have all of the listings for the cards here, so we'll go through them. The ones that I think are kind of the big hitters for me, As Foretold, one of my absolute favorite cards, enchantments from the set here. So As Foretold is an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, you can put a time counter on it, and then each turn you can pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for the spell. Where the spell's converted mana cost is X or less, where X is the number of time counter. So each turn you get to cast a free spell. Now, this is not only on your turn, this is also on your opponent's turn. So you could play, start taking this thing up. You get a, let's say you're going to get to opt on your turn, and then you get maybe a 1-mana spell for free. But then on your opponent's turn, you get to also cast a free 1-mana spell in addition. So that's really, really nice. Now, this card was seen as a combo deck with, it's used in combo back in the day in Modern with Electro Dominance, Restore Balance, things like that, where they had suspend cards that technically cost 0, Ancestral Visions and whatnot. So this was just kind of a way to cheat on the suspend cost because they technically cost 0 right up front. So there is that. In our particular case for Arena, I guess the other place that this was used was in like a blue-white control deck, using mostly to cast things like Cryptic Command. You get to protect or you get to fight counter wars or double spell to counter 2 different threats from your opponent. So I expect this is going to probably be used in that sort of fashion here as well in Arena, considering we don't have a lot of those free impact spells, like Restore Balance and Greater Gargadon and things like that. So definitely going to be something that might fit into a control shell. If it fits in anywhere, there might be some interesting combos that go around, but this is it's a slow card for sure, but it can generate you some pretty crazy value as well. In addition, going back here, looking as well, Champion of Wits, one of the great mid-range creatures of the set, was enter the battlefield. You drew cards equal to its power, then discarded 2, and then it also had, I believe it was Eternalize, and it came back as a 4/4. So instead of drawing 2, discarding 2, you drew 4, discard 2. So you were always up 2 cards, which was always nice. I believe that's what it was. Yeah. It's been a while since I played with Champion of Wits. Yeah, enters the battlefield, you may draw cards equal to its power, and then you do discard 2, and then it was Eternalize for 7, you get a 4/4, and then you draw 4, discard 2, which was great. Expect to be seeing that a ton. Commit to Memory is also one of those spells that also saw a lot of play in the control shell here. So it had target put, so for commit was the put target spell or down then permanent on top into its owner's library, second from the top. So it's kind of like a Venser sort of thing, kind of like a 5 fairy minus ability. And then the Memory Aftermath was each player shuffles his or her hand to their graveyard and then draws 7 new cards, which, interestingly enough, is kind of a combo with Narset Parter Veils, which means your opponent can't draw more than 1 card per turn. So if you have a Narset in play and you memory them, they can only draw 1 card, which is kind of a sweet combo. And normally we would be playing, the only way that those combos would work is generally with things like Wheel of Fortune type effects, right? Time Spiral type effects. In Arena, we only have Emergency Powers, which is a 7-mana sorcery, and it requires 2 colors. It does have some kind of marginal upside, but you kind of have to really be playing around it to make it work. In this particular case, the commit is good enough on its own, and memory is also great to and so I expect this to find some kind of home in a control shell where you're playing Narset. Narset helps find this, and then you get to combo off with memory once it's in the graveyard. So not a bad way to be. I think it's a pretty interesting card for it and should slot in very nicely into the format. Otherwise here, Drake Haven, Essence Scatter. Drake Haven being a cycling card, I believe, is when you cycle, you make a 2/2 Drake, which is very, very cool. Yep, whenever you cycle, discard a card, you can pay 1, and then you can make a Drake with flying, which is nice, always good. May or may not fit into the current existing cycling deck, only because there are some more efficient ways to generate creatures already from Ikoria, so may or may not fit into there, but giving it an option nonetheless. Hieroglyphic Illumination was one of the premier draw spells. Kafnet the Mindful was one of the gods. Out of here, the blue god, Kafnet Mindful, which is a 3-mana 5/5. Can't attack or block unless you have 7 more cards in hand, and then 3 in a blue, draw a card, and then you may return a land you control to its owner's hand, which is kind of interesting. While it kind of sets you back a little bit on the tempo of the turn, you could, play a spell or activate the ability, pick up a card, you drew a card, you generally will have a lot of cards in hand, and you replay the land, and now you're kind of back to being able to, opt again, you could cast a shock or what have you, depending on the colors. So this does have some, this has some places I'm sure that it will fit in, but it is a flyer, it's indestructible, it is a pretty reasonable threat. So this one might see some play here. Otherwise, let's see here. New Perspectives came back, which I think is also kind of the one card that we've been kind of talking about with the cycling deck and New Perspectives. So it is a 6 mana enchantment, but when it enters, you draw 3 cards, which is kind of crazy. But then as long as you have 7 or more cards in your hand, you may pay 0 rather than cycling cost, which is pretty sweet considering that we have the Triumph cycle that cycles for 3. So that just becomes free. You get to, make an entirely large, humongous board, and as long as you don't brick on cycling cards, you're pretty much set to go. The unfortunate thing here is that a lot of the lands that are the cycling lands, a lot of them come into play tapped, which is not great. You're fairly slow. So this is probably an instance where something like maybe Pact of Negation, you're going to see Jeskai probably playing cycling here, but Pact of Negation being a card that may, slot into this, and then eventually I think the new, more efficient combo kill is going to be something like Zenith Flare, so using Pact to protect that, but this is just going to help you churn through your deck, allowing you to cycle for free. So this should be a very nice inclusion, very, very cool. Outside of that, obviously we said Pact of Negation, pull from tomorrow, some more draw spells there. Slitherblade, which was really cool, it was an unblockable creature, I believe. Supreme Will was at one time the counter spell of choice for control decks, because it also allowed you to potentially dig deeper into your deck as well to find cards, so that was great. Nimble Obstructionist was one I forgot to mention here as well too. So Nimble Obstructionist, when it was cycled, you could when it was cycled, you countered an activated ability or triggered ability that you don't control, so you could cycle it away to stop a fetch land, to stop a Fable Passage. You could counter an Uro trigger. You could counter a Planeswalker activation, things like that, right? So this was always nice to see in control decks, especially, or even in decks that just needed a tempo out a little bit for back in the when we were coming off of Kaladesh, and this could be used against, say, Aetherworks Marvel or something like that. They would still have to pay the cost for removing the energy, but then they wouldn't get to spin the top off of the Marvel. So expect this one to see some play here in sideboards, I expect. Otherwise, Unesh, kind of a cool Sphinx Factor Fiction type of creature. It's also going to be pretty sweet in Brawl as a commander. Viziers, there's a few different Viziers here. Vizier of Tumbling Sands also would be one that would fit into the cycling deck. So Vizier of Tumbling Sands, it could tap to untap another permanent. You should be most likely untapping lands, and then whenever you cycle you could cycle this as well to untap a permanent as well too. So you would do that. So you have a bunch of different blue cycling cards, some blue control cards to come through here. So very exciting stuff as well. Now, taking a look at the black cards from Dengeki Online. Now, this is a Japanese site. A lot of this has been translated, thankfully. But we're looking here at what has come in. The 2 black cards that have come in that are not from Amonkhet are going to be Demonic Pact and Thoughtseize. So Thoughtseize from Morrowind and Demonic Pact from Magic Origins. And we get to take a look at the really cool new art here, Demonic Pact, and then as well Thoughtseize with this super cool new art. And we can take a look. We obviously, for those of us who don't know what Thoughtseize is, 1 black mana, you can you lose 2 life, and then you get to rip a card out of your opponent's hand. Pretty simple as that. Non-land card, just get it out of there. One of the premier hand disruption spells in all of Magic, so expect that to see a ton of play for sure. Now, Demonic Pact, on the other hand, is one that it's tricky. It's an enchantment, 4-mana enchantment at the beginning of your upkeep. Choose one that hasn't been chosen, so you have 4 different options here. Demonic Pact deals 4 damage to target creature or player, and you gain 4 life. Target opponent discards 2 cards, draw 2 cards, or you lose the game. So the pact, quote unquote, is that you get a lot of benefit, and then eventually you will lose the game. Now, how do we look to abuse Demonic Pact, or how do we use Demonic Pact in Arena? Well, traditionally it has been one where there were cards like Donate, or there was like a red creature from Shadows or Innistrad block that allowed you to donate something to your opponent, donate a permanent to an opponent. We don't have those here. you would basically donate this when the you lose the game trick is the only option left, and then your opponent straight up loses the game. In this particular case, we're gonna have to take a different approach in Arena, and what we do have in Arena is a very strong blink theme with things like Yorion and Charming Prince. So I expect that what's going to happen in as well in like the Doom Foretold type style decks is that we are going to be abusing the the deal 4 damage and gain 4 life, or the drawing 2 cards, or ripping our opponent's hand apart, and then blanking it with something like Yorion and looping that with Charming Prince and whatnot as well too. And so basically never getting to the point where we need to lose the game through Demonic Pact. Now that's risky in that if your opponent can in somehow way deal with your blinking loop, you are in trouble. You have a very short clock to win the game at that point. But hopefully you're in a very good position where you've drawn a good number of cards, you've been able to deal some damage, and you can fairly quickly close the game out from there. So that's where what we're going to be seeing. Black White probably, or Esper, Doom Foretold or Esper Pact is what we're going to be seeing as far as this card's concerned. Now we do have the listings here for the other cards in black that are coming in here. Archfiend of Ifnir has another cycling card. Bone Picker, Bantu the Glorified. Bantu's Last Reckoning was a really great card. The Amonkhet had a cycle of cards that there were like the lands don't untap or during your next turn, but they gave you a really powerful effect. So this is a 3-mana Wrath, but then you couldn't untap your lands during the next untap step. So this was a very interesting card. I think it did see a good amount of play. The turn off tempo sometimes was good enough, depending on kind of how you played the game and where this fit in. So this might see some play for sure. I would expect it is a very powerful card. Otherwise, let's see here. Liliana, Death's Majesty, one of the planeswalkers of the set. A really cool card, actually. 5 mana for 5 loyalty. +1, make a 2/2 zombie creature token, and then you put the top 2 cards of your library in your graveyard. So you mill over 2. -3, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. So you just get to straight up reanimate a card. And then also here, lastly, destroy all zombie creatures as the -7. So Liliana didn't see a ton of play in standard, but I expect that now with the more graveyard shenanigans that we have, this might find some home in some mid-range shell. It is a really sweet card, and if anything, it's going to be great in Brawl, allowing for some great reanimation spells. We may even see, since we do have Burial Rites as well in the format, this might just be another way to help kind of fuel the graveyard, help you also just be able to reanimate something as soon as it comes down. So might see some play in something like that. We might see a little bit of a potential resurgence in Reanimator. Otherwise here, Gravedigger, I don't think that was one. Let's see. There's one particular card I'm looking for. There's Razakat, the Foulblood, which is a really sweet card. Take a look at that here. Razakat, the Foulblood, so it's a 8 mana, 8/8 flying trample, and then you pay 2, sack a creature, and then just tutor up a card. Any card from your deck to your hand, and then shuffle. So this is this is going to be more of a commander, more Brawl all-star, probably more so than anything in standard, most likely. They're generally you're not really ramping to 8 mana in black, and if you're ramping to 8 mana, you're probably playing Ugin most likely, or you're ramping past 8 to get to Ulamog or something like that, right? So tutoring definitely going to be better for things like Brawl. Outside of that, Shadow of the Grave. There we go. That's the card I was looking for. So this was the other card. Shadow of the Grave was the card that comboed with New Perspectives, and that it's a 3 or 2 mana instant that let you return all cards that were either discarded or cycled this turn to your hand. So if you get New Perspectives down, you start cycling a ton of cards. You Shadow of the Grave them all back to your hand. Draw. And then maybe you're in a position where you can get a nice spicy Zenith Flare off. You could potentially get just play Thassa's Oracle and try to cycle to win the game that way. Or I guess you didn't even have to do that. You play Thassa's Oracle and win the game that way. So you have tons of options, and Shadow of the Grave going to be allowing you to generate that value. Now there is something to be thought about here, in the original cycling decks and the original New Perspectives decks back in the day, they were pretty combo-y. They really didn't play too much of a long game as far as, you know, they played like Haze of the Pollens and stuff to kind of like fog, and they played a little bit amount of removal here, but most of their cards were cycling cards, if not all of them. And so from that, you know, they also ramped with things like Sheffet Monitor, which is also in the set, which is exciting. So there is something to be thought about the existing flavor of cycling decks is, you know, play the little dorky dudes that from Ikoria that make creatures or that ping for damage or something, right? There may be something to be said that we have a good amount of the cards from the original cycling deck with just a better finisher in Zenith Flare. We also have Thassa's Oracle as well, so there's something to be said about, is cycling going to become either this combo based deck where it's, you know, a bunch of different colors, or are we going to still be this like Boros or Jeskai type you know, cycling deck that is just using some of these cards to be able to refuel, but you're probably just trying to build a wide board. Interesting to see which one's going to be the dominant one, but I do expect that Shadow of the Grave, you're going to see this a bunch. You're going to see New Perspectives a bunch, because that deck was very popular back when it was standard. Outside of that, obviously, we know that we saw Thoughtseize here. Otherwise, nothing too crazy. Wander in Death, Wastelands, let's see, Trial of Ambition. Yeah, there's really nothing too crazy. Torment of Hellfire, that's the last one. That's coming too as well. Torment of Hellfire is another ramp finisher, which is probably one of the most busted finishers out there. So Torment of Hellfire, black and X, repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. So you do something where, like, you ramp a whole ton, you get a Nissa down, you tap all your mana, you just float it all for a ton, and you cast this thing X, you know, 10, 15, 20, or something like that, and your opponent just straight up loses the game. They don't have enough resources in play, they don't have enough cards in hand to be able to satisfy the sacrifice or discard clauses, so you just lose 3 life. So you know, this is one of those cards that, again, a great ramp finisher. We may see this being utilized as a ramp closer out of a sideboard or something like that. Just another way to potentially get your spells through, or to get your damage through, versus, you know, doing something like Ulamog or a Nugan as a ramp target. I think this, of anything, is going to be a top tier finisher for sure. So there we go. That is black and blue as far as the Amonkhet preview cards. Tomorrow we have 2 more, CBR and Forbes, and then after that we are released in Amonkhet Remastered Historic. Should be exciting. Definitely make sure to stay tuned to tomorrow for the last card. So we should be expecting red, and then I'm gonna assume that the last one here is going to be artifacts, multicolor, and lands, just kind of all wrapped up in one. Hopefully they will be bringing back, you know, God Pharaoh's Gift and some other Nicol Bolas, God Pharaoh, things like that. So there might be some really cool stuff to see what's coming in. I don't know entirely what's being put into the set as far as additional outside cards from those perspectives, from those colors. So we'll have to wait and see tomorrow. So definitely stay tuned. Check back in tomorrow for that video. Otherwise, drop me some comments down below what you guys think of the spoilers from today, what cards you're excited to play with, what you think about Pact of Negation and Thoughtseize coming to Historic very soon here, and what you expect to see, what you hope to see come into the format tomorrow, with the previews for red and hopefully, you know, lands and multicolored and artifacts. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you guys tomorrow. Drop those likes, subscribes, comments, and yeah, talk to you guys later. We'll see you tomorrow.